George VI was crowned King of England, the Hindenburg disaster took place, Amelia Earhart disappeared, and Disney released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. What do all of those things have in common? They took place in 1937, the same year when Manchester City last did the double against Liverpool in the league, until 2026. City beating Liverpool 2-1 at Anfield, City doing the double over Liverpool, an incredibly fantastic result for City. But there were still some second half issues that we do need to address. Unfortunately, this is not going to be a purely positive analysis video. On this channel, I like to try to be as objective and fair and balanced as possible. I will be, of course, be looking at the really fantastic work that City did, especially in that first half. Bernardo Silva conquering and dominating at Anfield. But where did it all go wrong in the second half? And then where did it go right towards the end? All of those questions and more will be addressed in today's analysis installment. Let's start with the lineups, and City threw a spanner into the proverbial works against Liverpool because we have never seen Marmoush, Haaland, Semenyo all starting on the pitch at the same time for City. There were lots of questions as to how City were actually going to set up. In the end, it was relatively straightforward for the off-ball, slightly more complicated for the on-ball for City. We'll get to Liverpool in a second, but as for the out of possession, City did what they have been doing for a fair few months now, on and off. We first saw this in that period where City played really well against Bournemouth and Liverpool, and it was the diamond press. It was Haaland and Marmoush leading the press with Bernardo behind them, Semenyo, O'Reilly either side of it. And what did this press mean? Well, City deployed the exact same tactic as they did at the Etihad, forcing Liverpool to build down their right-hand side, denying access to Van Dijk, forcing them to go through Konate, who is not an especially good ball-playing centre-back, or Szoboszlai, who is a midfielder cosplaying at right back. And Nunes is the clear midfielder playing at right back, yeah? So City identified that as the weakness, and thanks to the positioning of Bernardo in particular, and also Haaland usually bending his run to deny access to Van Dijk, City were able to continually force Liverpool to build down their weaker side. Alisson's forced to punt it, Bernardo recycles the ball, Bernardo should have an assist at Anfield within the first 2 minutes. Haaland denying them again, down the right side. They have to play through Konate. They have to play through Szoboszlai. This is where they are weaker. Aït-Nouri pushing up as that jumping fullback, denying Liverpool any time and space on the ball, forcing them out of play. Once again, they're trying to find Van Dijk every single time. City are not going to let them do that. Bernardo denying a number of passing lanes here. There were also a fair few moments in that first half where Haaland's positioning wasn't quite right, or his decision-making wasn't quite right, and Bernardo Silva each time was able to fill in that gap. Such was his game intelligence in that match. Liverpool desperately just recycling back and forth, back and forth. They want to have an actual avenue, but they can't. City are demanding that they go through Konate, they go through Szoboszlai. Here's Haaland's positioning again. Look at Bernardo jumping onto Alisson, forcing him to play it to their weaker side. O'Reilly pushing up. City win it back into a dangerous area. Bernardo puts in a decent ball for Erling Haaland to hit. That was the story of that first half, and it's not a bit of new information. We discussed it on the preview as well. This is something that City could do to get at Liverpool, force them into a number of errors. That was really, really good to see. So big up to the Diamond press for that. Speaking of the Diamond, I was a bit confused watching the first half, and Liverpool clearly were confused as well, as to what was City doing in that first half. I couldn't really figure it out, what was going on upon that first watch of the first half. And it was actually quite straightforward in the end. So City played a 4-4-2 diamond off ball, and they also played it on ball. And that sounds quite straightforward, but we are used to City doing something a little bit different. So I guess I was perhaps overthinking it, but that is basically all it was. So when City went into possession, it was just a 4-4-2 diamond with a slight twist, and this is where the intelligence of Bernardo comes into play. Again, what a surprise, such a fantastically intelligent player. The only difference was Semenyo and Bernardo would rotate. Indeed, Bernardo would sometimes actually find himself at left centre-back, Tony Kroos at the Euros situation, to just ensure that City had enough bodies in the build-up in that first half. As we'll get into, Liverpool didn't really actually engage that high or with that much intensity anyway, so that didn't really matter. But the fact is that Bernardo was just everywhere and anywhere, rotating with Semenyo. So now you've got Semenyo playing as that number 10. You've got Bernardo and O'Reilly in their more familiar positions at either side of a diamond in possession. This worked but it also didn't work. It worked in that Semenyo is a fantastic off-ball player. It didn't work in that Semenyo is not an out-and-out pure number 10. I reckon that Semenyo could work as one of 2 number 10s or one of 3 number 10s, but as the sole creative thrust, that's not necessarily strictly his game. So there was a very little connectivity between our number 10 and our 2 strikers. The dynamics weren't quite there. I think in another shape, it could have perhaps worked. I don't buy the idea that there was no creativity in that side, because there were a number of creative players in that side. The fullbacks are creative. A couple of those midfielders are also creative. And perhaps it didn't work to great effect in respect of creating absolute chances. But certainly as for the control in the match, there is no doubt that decision did work. So perhaps it was a more defensive decision, but that defensive solidity did, in fairness, platform City to then kick on and have a number of shots in that first half. So here is a stat from Opta. Liverpool faced 10 shots in the opening half against City, their joint most in the first half of a league match at Anfield on record, which is since 2004. So it did work. It didn't work. So it was give and take. It was give and take. So here's an example of it working off ball. And this is what I mean by having Semenyo in there. It just makes City more solid from a rest defence perspective, and it makes City really solid when we turn over the ball. You've got a fantastic physical second ball winner who's really capable of winning duels as well. So Alisson punts it up. Who's there to win the second ball? It's Semenyo. Liverpool did not really understand who was tasked with picking up Semenyo. Sometimes it was McAllister trying to pin himself onto him. Often it was Kirkes going to him man-to-man. I think that Kirkes was perhaps expecting him to be more of a right winger. And again, the novelty of what City were doing with those 3 forwards, I think, is what ultimately caused a lot of confusion in that first half, and why Liverpool weren't really able to get that much of a foothold in the match. Semenyo was sometimes dropping really deep as well, just to add to that level of confusion and misstep. Physical here, receiving the ball, dropping deep, a Liverpool player pushing onto him. Semenyo deals with it really well. Konate's forced into a foul on Marmoush. If he doesn't foul him there, it's a dangerous situation created by City thanks to the positioning of Semenyo. Second ball here. Semenyo wins it back, gets City up the pitch into a dangerous position here. But that's perhaps where the dynamics weren't quite there. So it worked, but it didn't work. It works in that, okay, Semenyo's won the ball back, that's lovely, but the attack broke down when the 3 of them tried to connect with one another. When Haaland, Marmoush, Semenyo tried to connect and construct attacks with one another. They're all really players who like to run in behind. Perhaps they could have used with a player who would have been able to find them more, so perhaps someone like Shirky, for example. But then you are, of course, losing a lot of the defensive solidity, and perhaps one wanted to be cautious given it was Anfield. Marmoush not able to find Haaland there. This is what I meant earlier about Semenyo just like picking up a pocket of space. Liverpool players don't really know who should be picking him up. As such, he's able to drive forwards, but the touch lets him down and Liverpool are able to clear. This is another one of those situations. If you got someone like Foden here, or perhaps Shirky here, perhaps this pass is a little bit more respectable. As it is, Semenyo really badly overhits it and the attack is now gone. So there were positives, there were negatives. City didn't create too much in the first half, but it was only the first half. There was another half of football to play, and I was quite happy with that first half performance overall. Liverpool had 0 shots on target. We had all of the possession. We had all of the ball, all of the control. Liverpool not asking City any questions. So yeah, City were a little bit stunted offensively, but they still had a couple of good chances. And there's no doubt that defensively, they were absolutely supremely in charge. And that is reflected in the match momentum as well. If we have a look at that first half, it's basically all blue. It's all City. Liverpool not able to get a foothold in the game. Thanks to the off-ball work of Semenyo, even though if it didn't really work on ball, you would think that is that a position more akin to someone like Foden, for example, maybe Shirky, but then you are losing a lot of that pressing / off-ball solidity. And Bernardo, again, there was I could have picked so many examples of Bernardo's pressing and work rate and match intelligence, but this video would be about 45 minutes long. I could have just played the first half and gone, right, there you go, there's Bernardo, look at him. And as we all know, that happened in the second half as well, and City were able to dominate the game, and it was a lovely time had by all, and it was a really nice, non-chaotic ending to the match, and we can all go home now. Bye. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like on the way out. Okay. If you're still here, hi, first of all, I'm going to warn you that I'm now going to be quite negative So if that's going to upset you, I would recommend clicking off, because I know we won at Anfield, and of course the result was gorgeous, but the second half performance was still incredibly worrying, specifically from minutes 45 to 80. Now, Slot claimed in a post-match interview that his tactics didn't really change from the first half to the second half. The idea was still to engage high up the pitch. Now, either he's lying or his players just didn't get the memo, because it was night and day in respect of Liverpool's approach in the first half and the second half. Here is an example. So Donnarumma receives the ball at 16:03. And do Liverpool engage high up the pitch? Do they engage with a massive amount of bodies committed forwards and a lot of pressing intensity? No, 17 seconds pass. 17 seconds until a Liverpool player actually properly engages with Donnarumma. City are away. There's still no pressure on the City player, on Kusanov here. There's still no pressure on Haaland. Look at all the space that Haaland has to just run into. Ends up in a potentially dangerous situation. Szoboszlai does well to get it, to win the ball from Marmoush. If you've seen these videos before, you know the exact pattern that I'm going to present to you. The question is, why did City drop off in the second half? The reason why City dropped off in the second half is because they were not able to sustain possession in the second half relative to the first. 61% first half, 49% second half. And that is inflated by the final 10 minutes or so. We'll get into that in a moment. But why did City have less of the ball? Because their passing accuracy got far worse. 90%, 79%. That's a significant drop. Why did the passing accuracy get worse? Because City were forced to go long a lot more, nearly twice as much, from 7% to 13% in the second half. Okay, but why did they have to go long more? Because Liverpool forced them to go long more. Do not let these numbers deceive you. Look at the lines here. You can even see it just before the end of that first half. And that's why City looked a little bit suspect in the final 10 or so minutes of that first half. It had been coming, in fairness. Lower 47, all the way up to 15, to 17, to 11, and as we'll get into it, then massively dropped off. But the idea was that Liverpool increased their pressing intensity in the second half. And that is why you have this match momentum chart. You'll notice this massive Manchester City climb once Liverpool scored the goal. And I will get into the mistake that Slot made. Here's a stat for you. From minute 45 through to 75, City had 30% possession. From minutes 45 through to 75, i.e. when Liverpool scored, I'm going to take some guesses now. How many 10-plus pass sequences do you think City had in that 30-minute period? If you said 2, you'd be wrong. It was 0. Okay? But how about 5-plus pass sequences? How many pass sequences did City have where it was more than 5 passes achieved? If you said 2, you'd be wrong again, because it was 0. That is a staggering decline in passing ability. To not string more than 5 passes together for Pep Guardiola's Manchester City side for 30 minutes of football is a damning indictment on that 30 minutes of a performance. And that is ultimately where the match went away from us. And this is where I'm going to get very negative. City just went long over and over and over again. In that first half was that Liverpool wanted to keep a +1 on the back line. In the second half, what happened was they didn't care as much about that. So they were willing to push up Kerkez, Szoboszlai, their midfield as well, and they were willing to have a 2v2 at the back with Van Dijk versus up against Haaland, Konate up against Marmoush, and then latterly Semenyo. So that meant that Liverpool now had an additional body going forwards. Now, this is a double-edged sword because it now means that that's a big risk. If you leave Haaland 1v1 at the back, usually you're going to have a bad time. But Van Dijk is an excellent aerial defender, and if you play that sort of football, you are now playing low probability percentage football. You are now becoming reliant on, first of all, your long passes being good, and then you're relying on your forwards to win the aerial duel, or you're looking for them following that duel, that ball to then still be with a City player. But that is not what happened. Goal kick, Konate easily gets it over Marmoush, leads to a dangerous opportunity for Salah. Gakpo's offside here. The broadcast cameras show about 1 million replays. By the time we go back to the match, City have lost the ball. We've hoofed it up. Konate beats Marmoush again. Liverpool able to recycle the ball. Hoof it up. Not even really near Haaland. Van Dijk just easily deals with that. Leads to a dangerous opportunity for Ekitike. We give up possession, we give up chances. After this chance, we have more replays of like Slot's bald head, because you apparently need to see that 1 million different times. By the time the camera cuts back to the match action, City have lost the ball again. And Donnarumma's forced into a really good punch. I'd contend that you don't need to make that punch if you just keep hold of the ball. Guéhi this time goes long. Konate in, easily ahead of Marmoush. Ekitike has an amazing chance to score. No idea how he doesn't do it. An amazing ball by Salah. By the time the replays end and we cut back to the game, City have lost the ball again. It was remarkable how eager City were to give up the ball, and that leads to the Gakpo shot and the Kusanov getting concussed as well. Shirky came on. Okay, are City going to get more of a measure in the game? No, it's irrelevant. Shirky had 8 touches of the ball between him coming on and Soboslai's goal. If you can't get the ball to Shirky, he can't do anything with the ball. We go along again. Van Dijk beats Haaland in the air. Haaland should be doing a lot better, I would suggest. There were 10 duels between Haaland and Van Dijk, and according to Y-Scout, Haaland only won 1 of them. Now that is unacceptable. In a vacuum, absolutely. But we do also have to accept that Van Dijk is a very good aerial defender and a very good physical defender. And even if the ball is perfect, and it never was, it's still very challenging to make that work on a consistent basis. Guéhi this time, into Donnarumma. Van Dijk back to us. Leads to Guéhi fouling Salah. Another dangerous opportunity created by City just going long. When we went short, that also didn't work. Guéhi into Bernardo. City lose it immediately. City's failing every single time is an inability to keep hold of the ball and of possession. We're not done there. Another hoof. This time through Diaz. Liverpool get the ball. This then leads to the period of possession where Liverpool get the free kick. And they ultimately end up scoring. It is never a one-person problem. There is still no doubt that the main issue is that our goalkeeper is just hoofing it long and the passes are not even that accurate. Perhaps if the passes were really accurate into Marmoush and Haaland, or we could play beyond those players and run in behind, maybe it's a different conversation and maybe it's a viable strategy. But how many times are we going to see it? And how many times are we going to see City crumble in the second half? It's not a mystery why City are performing poorly in second halves of football. This is just a brief aside. I don't want to spend too long on this. I don't know if I agree with this, and you don't have to believe me. I've spoken to a former professional goalkeeper at top flight level. He believes that it's an error that there's only 2 players in the wall there. You can see that Donnarumma clearly says, I want 2 players there. Now, he says that's an error. I would also actually say, something I've not really seen that many people talk about, I don't really know what Diaz is doing, because Diaz basically pushes him and Gakpo out of the way, and if he just stayed there, then the goal doesn't go in. Either way, it's a really good free kick. It's just some food for thought there. There probably should have been 3 men in the wall, considering that Soboslai is an amazing set-piece specialist. I don't really know what Diaz and Gakpo were getting up to there either. So Liverpool had all of the momentum. They had all of the impetus in the game. City were no longer able to stamp their authority and mark in the game. So what changed? Well, this is just to reiterate my point. This is from Mark Stats on Twitter. Big up to him. 62% passing accuracy from City in that first half in respect to their open play passes, from 48 through to the Soboslai goal. That is embarrassing, to achieve 32 passes in around 30 minutes. So you're basically doing a pass a minute. That is pathetic. I actually can't believe it's that bad. But look what happens after Soboslai's goal. It more than triples in respect of the accurate passes. Going up to 116, of course, there's less time as well. This is night and day, so what happened? Basically what happened is Liverpool and Slot, for whatever reason, backed off. It was almost like they were happy with the 1-0 and they wanted to hold on to the 1-0. Now, unless you're Arsenal, in the Premier League this season, that's an incredibly risky strategy, especially against City, who, despite all our flaws, we are still the best attacking side in the Premier League. We've scored the most goals. If you set up defensively against us, more than likely, we are going to break through at some point. So, whilst I just criticised City a lot for the past however many minutes I've been speaking, City do deserve a lot of praise here. And yes, slot is basically what Liverpool did badly rather than what we did well. They allowed us to do this. But we still took advantage. So they opened the door for us, but we still had to step through. And indeed we did. So Liverpool now happy to just camp on the edge of their box and inside their box. And if you're willing to do that, okay, fine. But now you are not in control of the game, and now you have to be reactive rather than proactive. Shirky's cross, it takes a massive, unfortunate deflection from Liverpool's perspective. But pay attention to Bernardo here. This is so intelligent from him. So he's not even looking at the ball here because he knows where the ball is going to go. So he's already thinking ahead and to, right, the ball's going to go there. Where do I need to be stationed in case a flick on is going to happen? And who is actually attacking this ball now? Is it just a Liverpool player, or is it my teammate who's got a really good run on the ball? And he realises and notes that Haaland has a really good run on the ball and there's no Liverpool player directly towards him. So he now gambles that Haaland's going to win that ball and flick it on for him. And immediately he's running into that space. Szoboszlai plays him on, and Bernardo deserved that goal. Fantastic reading of the game. And once again, fantastic match intelligence from Bernardo. This is something that we touched on in the tactical preview as well. Kerkez is so easy to drag out to that left side. Whether it's McAllister, Gravenberch, Jones in this instance, Liverpool have a tendency to not track runners in this area, in that gap between Van Dijk and Kerkez. If you watched the tactical preview, you will know that I suggested, could we perhaps attack that space? And in the 90th minute of the game, that's exactly what City did. It's Bernardo once again. Intelligence, we love that. Núñez making the run. It's not good enough from McAllister and Jones. At least one of them has to track the run of Núñez, but they don't. Núñez runs in behind. So much space. Alisson does make an error. Alisson does foul him. It is a penalty. And City, based on how Liverpool self-imploded at the end, I do think, given how Liverpool were so willing to sacrifice control, they deserved to lose the game, in all honesty. So, as much as I've been having a go at City in the second half, that's on Liverpool, and that's their own fault. And so we did deserve to take advantage of that, and take advantage we did, with Haaland stepping up to take the all-important penalty, and Donnarumma making a massive save towards the end. That same goalkeeper I spoke to, I don't know if I agree with this, by the way, that same goalkeeper I spoke to did ask the question of, why is Donnarumma so high out on his line? If he were just positioned a bit deeper, then he could have quite easily done the save quite comfortably rather than doing a miraculous one. But regardless, it is a really lovely save. And this is the trade-off, isn't it? The main reason why we are struggling in second halves is because City's build-up isn't good enough. And the main reason why City's build-up isn't good enough is because of the goalkeeper. It's not the only factor, it is the main factor. People will argue that saves like this are all that matters. I haven't yet been convinced of that because that's missing the point of the shot prevention versus shot stopping debate. I'm still waiting to see, and I don't think it's correct to conclude either way. Games like this do not convince me of that fact, but there's still many games to be played this season, and City are still technically in the title race, despite my brain telling me that we're not going to win the title this season. But if we are going to win the title, we did have to win at Anfield. And we did win at Anfield. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, despite I don't think it's overly negative, but I think it's just practical. But if you interpreted it as overly negative, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but hopefully you were still able to enjoy the video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support on the channel. It's been absolutely wonderful recently. Shout out to my highest supporters across Patreon and the YouTube membership: Tony, Spartacus, Silver Splits the Blue, Ethan Larios, Austin King, Rowan, Bapalint, TJ, and Tony Howe.